Amazing. Great. So I'm gonna be talking a little bit about how do you tell a story of your product. So the name of this presentation is the story of your product name. You name it. Um, and I am, well, Juliet already told a little bit about myself, but just to share, my name is Juliana. My pronouns are she, her. I'm a group product manager at Spotify, and I'm also CEO and founder of Bila, that is the organization that guide immigrant women and non-binary people in Sweden into the tech industry. So we're very focused on trying to reskill people and try to get them a short path through the Swedish job market and very specialized in tech. And when we say tech, it's pretty much everything around like coding, programming, but also the surroundings when it comes to UX, UI, designers, and also researchers and product managers, project managers, and so on and so forth. I live in Sweden. I'm usually based in Stockholm, but right now I'm in Madrid for Easter. So happy Easter for all of you who celebrate, by the way. And well, I'm gonna be here until the 1st of June, actually, and then gonna go back to Sweden. But I'm originally from Brazil. That's my background. So I moved to Sweden on 2018 to work as a product manager already. It wasn't on Spotify, so I've been at Spotify since it's gonna be 2 years soon. But I've always been, working in the tech industry. I started my career as a developer, and then on 2016, I migrated to product. So one of the things that I love and I'm most passionate about doing product development is because I am a very much a problem thinker. I think I pay so much more attention to problems in general than to solutions, which can be a good and a bad thing. But as a product person, I think it fit me really well in the moment of my career that I did the transition to product. But I also love that I have the technical background to work with development teams, and I can talk, the same language as them, as the engineers. I think it's very helpful. Although I know many product people, they come from different backgrounds. At least in Spotify nowadays, I work with a very technical team. We are core infrastructure, and we build products, internal products for our colleagues, for our Spotify engineers. So my focus is on the storage and databases area, and this is also something that I'm super passionate about data in general. But I would say it's been a nice and fun challenge to be part of Spotify and be part of a core infrastructure team. It's been amazing. So moving on a little bit, if you get this QR code, I also have at the end of the presentation, you can connect to me LinkedIn, and you can email me whatever questions that you might have. If we do not have the time, I'm happy to take that as well, and just introduce each other through LinkedIn as well. So, what is product storytelling? And I'm going to be focusing a lot on this product storytelling because it's something that we don't hear a lot. I think if you are a product person already, if you are a product manager, product owner, this is part of the discipline, part of something that you're going to hear about. But especially as engineer, UX people, you don't actually listen a lot about how to present your product, how to pitch your product, because this is somehow people believe this is a PM thing to do or a PO thing to do. But my mantra, my everyday mantra is that good products are not done by a product manager, are done by a good product team. So I am very focused on thinking that everyone should have product thinking. And this is one part, the storytelling is one part of product thinking that, could be beneficial for all of us, regardless of background. Uh, Product storytelling, it pretty much narrates why you developed the product, the challenge that you faced, and how it has improved the lives of your customers. And I think it's fun when you look at this because as an engineer, you can read this and think, well, the challenges I faced are very technical. Sometimes I couldn't find a solution to a problem. And what we're going to focus here, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about this later, is the fact that we should even avoid talking about the technical problems that we have when we are pitching for a product. And that's pretty much because our end users, they can be technical and they can be non-technical as well. And what matters the most for them is if the product that you're doing is actually solving the problem that they have, instead of the all the technical challenges that you might have faced. So I think this is super important. One question that I always have when I do this kind of presentations is, if isn't this the same as a user story? And you're probably very familiar with user story as using Agile, that I know that you are. Well, it's true. They're both products of story mapping, done by usually a PO or a PM, or sometimes the team write user stories as well. And the user stories, they serve to align teams and stakeholders during the product development process. So the similarities are pretty much about product storytelling and user stories. They end there. Um, what we're going to focus more about the product storytelling is that this is done by the end of the process. And it's pretty much, well, you can of course start telling the story and taking the stories that you already built, and take them beyond the simple goal of developing a product, for example, and extend this to a story and create a narrative that communicates the product value to the customer. So this is the part where it differs from a user story. User stories are usually used is you can of course talk to your customer with the user story as well, but they are usually much more for the team, for the PM, for the stakeholders, and for the business itself. So the part that differs a little bit is that here you're going to talk directly to the customer, you're going to sell what you did. So it can be quite different the way that you structure a user story and a product story that you use for storytelling. So yes, I'm gonna talk a little bit about the tips to create a great product storytelling, so you can use this in your presentation as well. In the end, there are some prompts that I'm gonna, of course, I'm gonna share this presentation with you, that you can use this prompt to make the life a little bit easier when you have when you're creating your product story. So, as I said, I am a person that loves talking about the problem. So, I think one of the things that when we are thinking about the storytelling is that you need to focus on the problem that you solved with the product that you built. So, identify the problem in this part of the presentation, and show the transformation it brings and the differentiation that you have from other things in the market, or how and then we're going to talk how later, but how this brings value to your customers. I think this is super important. So a great product, of course, is an essential part of any product story, and your product story should indicate a complete understanding of the problems that you solved, the pain points that you solved, and the best solution. Of course, it is your product. But I think it's so important that by this phase, you ended up your product. If you do not have a good understanding of the problem that you're trying to solve, or the needs or the pain of your customers, it's also okay to go back and to ask and to always, research and say, is this really solving the initial problem that we mapped? My hint is that usually when we start with any product development, doing brainstorming, ideation, you focus a lot on the problem. But it can be that you get lost, in the middle of the process. What are we trying to achieve anyway? So it's never too late, to go back and understand if this is actually solving the user's problem at all. And I think this part is super important to have in the storytelling. Yeah, so going forward, one thing that I always like to call out is that the hero of the story and the product storytelling is the user. I know we are all superheroes when we build something and we get so attached and so proud with the things that we built, but we built this for someone to use and someone to buy and someone to like and to love. And this person should be the center of the story that you're going to tell. Developing and that's why it's super important that you develop an understanding of the problem, because you're going to be narrating this to the person that is facing the problem. So imagine you're talking about something that you have no idea what the other side is facing. So it's super important that you create that empathy and take this problem to yourself and think, this is my problem now too, to solve. And I think this also helps to put the user in the center of the story that you're building. uh, many product teams like to use personas, right? I'm not sure if you use that, but it's super it's sort of a semi-fictional character, right, representing the ideal audience of your product. And sometimes personas, they can be, even you can put a name, you can put a personality in the persona as well, but it's also good to go back there to the beginning of the process where you define the personas, bring them back to the storytelling as well, and share a little bit of the needs that they have. um and the one thing that is, I think it's super important as well moving forward, it is simplifying the message, right, and filter out unnecessary noise. So as I said in the beginning, it can we can always, go into the trap of talking a lot about the technical implementations that we did, and how things feature work, this feature a b, they serve for this, they serve for that. And I think not everything, every little thing that we did belongs in the product story. Keeping the story simple is super important for engaging people and persuading them to support the product. So sometimes doing a version for dummies, depending on the audience that you're gonna present, I think it can be very valuable as well. This is one of the parts that I struggle the most, to be honest. And I used to have a manager that used to tell me that it's something that I keep repeating nowadays. That is, I'm sorry for the long message. I didn't have time to make it shorter. And I think it's exactly like this. Make, the message, filtering the noise and make it simple. It's super difficult. Of course, now we do have, a bunch of stuff that can help us to shorten the message. You can try to use chat gpt, you can try to use so many things, but it's super important that you do not lose the context, right, that you need to bring to the user, but also filter the noise. Do not share more than they need to know. One thing that I like is that try to use, a lot of technical jargon, for example. Try to use simple language for the most complex feature that you have. And if you're writing, write in the way you talk. Write naturally, keep all words, paragraphs, and sentences short. And of course, you have UX writers, they're, specialized on that as well. If you have the luxury to have one, I don't have one in my team nowadays at Spotify, but if you do have the luxury, try to use them as your coaches as well. I think it helps a lot to create a good storytelling. I'm bringing one example for you from Spotify, and I love this one. And I think it's great because when you read the sentence, that is pretty much, dear person who played sorry 42 times on Valentine's Day, what did you do? And, they're talking to an audience. So folks that know sorry, Justin Bieber sorry, and folks that probably Gen X. And we do a lot of this separation of personas in Spotify, right? We have the Gen Zs, the Gen X, and this message is not talking to my mom, for example. This message is also probably not talking to my dad. It could be talking to my brother, it could be talking to me, but I feel like they didn't need a lots of words to target an audience, to advertise, and actually already talks a little bit about the product, because, well, it played a song, right, that was sorry. It played 42 times, so it gives a little bit of the features, it gives a little bit of hint about who they are talking to, and it sends a message, right? So I really like it. So moving on, one thing that I think it's super important here, that I see product managers doing this a lot, but I wanted to bring this because I know not all of you are product people or know a lot about this. But communicating the purpose of the product when you are sending a message, especially when it's the first time, right? I use the Spotify as example, but Spotify today is like top of mind, right? When you're talking about music, when you're starting a startup, for example, or just build a product, it's so important that the message, about the mission and the vision that you're building and the strategy, so stressed out that, keep telling every time. And you can keep, writing different ways, communicating different ways, but it's super important that you communicate the purpose of the product. There is like easier ways to do that. So one example is for the why, how, what, from Simon Sinek, and I use this a lot because I think it brings me to the center of the things that I'm building on a daily basis as a product manager. But Simon used to say people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. So there's a lot of marketing here as well, right, that I'm bringing, but this is super important when you're telling a story about a product. You need to use product marketing as well. But I think one of the most important functions of a product story, it is to explain the why and the how of a product. And if you read a little bit about product management in general, you know how we build why and how of a product. It's usually with a product vision and with a product strategy. And the goal of any effective product story, it is to instill a passion for the product in the development team, right? So in you folks that are developing, but also to help the customer develop sort of an emotional connection with the product that you're building. And with this, that's why it's super important that you stress the vision and the strategy that you built. And talking about vision and strategy, I decided to bring a little bit what is the difference between all of them. But basically, in the product vision, it constitutes the why, right? It is sort of the mission and the goal of your product, which guides everyone involved in the product development process. So this is why you're building this. And of course, include the developers, include marketing, include the product team, and so on and so forth. It's sort of a shared objective in between the teams of why you're building it. So the product strategy is exactly where it's gonna be the how, right? Is probably where you're gonna describe how you're gonna be achieving the goals that you set up in the why, in the product vision that you have. And the goals, I mean, there's 1,000 of frameworks to do this. You can use North Star, for example, OKRs, or however you want to see, you know, the strategic goals for your product. The strategy is exactly how you're going to achieve those goals. This part of the product story, it kind of discuss how the product came to life, for example, what it hopes to achieve, how it's planning on achieving it. It doesn't need to have technical details or implementations, but more in a user-friendly language to describe that. And a good story should identify the product's target customer and how they can get the most out of it as well. So I think this is like two sort of, you know, it's not simple. I would say it's not, it's a simple concept, but it's not simple in real life to do. It's one of the most challenging things that for product people it is to build good product strategy and product visions. But it's so important once that you have one, that you stress this enough to the user to sell the product that you are building. One thing that is super important, this is again a lot of marketing and product marketing, is it is to engage people's emotion and persuade them to care about the product, right? So I would say that most of the great product people I know, they are great storytellers, and storytelling is also like a great tool for us in general, not only as a product manager, but also as engineers, designers, and so on and so forth, because the stories, they reach us on an emotional level rather than an analytical one, right? So it sort of obligates us to not think analytical all the time, but bring the discussion to another level. And it's all emotions, it's our emotions that propel us to act as well. So I would say if you're trying to persuade, for example, a new market, or if you're trying to persuade people to use a product, you will be much more successful by painting a picture of how the product will improve their lives, sort of an emotional appeal, than by just present a list of features, right? And a comparison, for example, of how much more affordable is a product compared to the other one in the market. And then like a competition is a purely analytical approach. Like, if you compare this to that, because it can be that your product is cheaper, but it also, it's probably not what's going to make me buy most of the time. So when you can describe sort of an aspirational future for your persona, for your user persona, for example, imagine saving X hours of work a week with the product that you're doing. I think this is probably going to create much more emotional connection than just, you know, listing the feature, save X minutes if you use feature X, or something like that. Another part that is super important is that you should make it relatable as well, right? So I already spoke a little bit about how it's important to use the language, use the understand your user needs, understand, the personas, the ages that you're talking about, and so on and so forth. But we connect when stories resonate by tapping into your sort of humanity, right? So keep this question front and center as you craft your story. Why should anyone care about this? And it's not because it's the most technical and beautiful product in the market, but why people should care about this. Is this actually going to be bringing, something beneficial to them, or is it going to solve a problem that they have? Is it an opportunity that they have to be XYZ? So I think these questions are super important. So I said already, but I think it's good to repeat. Don't try not to focus too much on the product features that you build. It may be very tempting to make the center of the story. Look at the shiny things that this product is doing. But remember, the users, not the features, they are the heroes of the story. And try to avoid making a long list of all the features that your product possesses, because it can also be that the users get lost in such a list without fully grasping why it benefits them. So the long list of features also make the product story appear too salesy, sort of, which can be, I don't know, people can be thinking that you're just there to sell them something without any emotional emotional appealing, any understanding of their pains. Also, avoid inundating your potential customers with incomprehensible technical information. And myself, I'm saying that and trying to listen as well, because I build products for technical people, right? So I build products for developers, which is super hard, because sometimes we want to go into, look, we built this amazing thing, and at the end they are like, yeah, but this is not even making my life better. It's not making me be, uh, decrease our operational toil. It's not making, me a faster developer. It's not increasing my productivity. But wow, it's amazing. The code is beautiful. It works. It runs. There's no bugs. So I think this is something that we always need to keep reminding ourselves that super important. Uh, I think one of the things that I also like is the fact that companies, big startups, and companies that are scaling up, they try to stick with the same story and make it a legend. So the tone that you use in the story is super important. All the channels that you're using. And when building my own nonprofit, right, and my own startup, I struggle a lot with this, because we had different folks doing marketing for different parts. So we had the social media, and then we had newsletter that were different people. So we decided, okay, we need to write our own tone of voice. We need to keep consistency in between on how you talk about the product. And as a team, it's super important that you have an alignment as well, because maybe you have a view of what this product is, but your colleague do not. So it's super important that you make it the same story and keep it consistent. Before I end, also super important that I think it's exciting, and one thing that Google knows to do very well. Every time they launch something, they talk about what they're launching next. So talking about the future in the storytelling is also super important. Myself, I love talking about the future. If I could, I would live in the future. So I think it's super interesting if you have the chance to talk about uh, how you're why you are going to that direction, how you're going to achieve the promises that you're making to the customers. Yeah, and as I said, I brought prompts. And I think, for example, starting with the background is super useful. And then you ask, who do you hope to influence through the story? What do you want them to feel? What do you want them to do? So answering this background stories can give you, a good way to start a conversation of the product that you want to pitch. Um, Forming the story, I think it's important talking about the challenges, as I said. So, for example, if you had any challenges, what are the conditions that have lead to the conflict? What is the conflict that you're trying to solve? How can this conflict be resolved? What can you or your product do to resolve the conflict? And this is very much again focused on the user problem. What are you the why are you the right person, right, to resolve this conflict? Or why is your team the right team to build the product that you built? And at the end, try to polish the story. Is it clear? Is there something relatable that you can use to simplify the stories? So, for example, some sort of metaphor, an analogous story that will make it easier to grasp. And as I said, it can take more time for some folks. For myself, like, making a story super short is really, really hard, so I need to spend more time. And some people, like UX writers, they already have, a bunch of tools that you could use as well. And the last one, what would you say if you had half the time and space to tell the story? What will you cut? And I think this is an exercise that also requires a little bit of more practice. But I think answering these prompts is gonna help you, to wrap up what you did and have, a good storytelling that people could relate to as well. I want to open for questions. I think, yeah, it was around 25 minutes according to the clock. But please, just speak up if you have any questions, or send in messages.
You did really good. Thank you so much. Yeah.